everybody. Thank you for joining us for this really powerful webinar today. Before we get started, I'd love to welcome Brenda DuBois to give us an opening prayer.
Thank you. Welcome to our territory. I'd like you to take a moment to take a good cleansing breath. I've just lit a smudge of sage and a little bit of bear root. Try to clear our minds. Get ready for a very touching conversation. And I want you to take a breath in to give gratitude. If you can give gratitude in your own mind, you will help with what we call collective prayer. I'm always grateful for the opportunity to just wake up. I pray that I'm listening, so that whatever Creator is meant for me to hear, see, feel, touch today, all the senses to be open. I ask you to do that and partake in that as well. I ask us to take a moment, because today we take a moment, not just a moment. This is a moment that lasts a lifetime for a lot of people. To acknowledge the fact that somebody was taken unjustly from our community, a loved one, a mother, a daughter, a grandmother, brother, sister, two-spirited, all the ones that have gone quickly, and some that still we have yet to find. Pray for them. Pray for them. Pray for the families. Good prayer. Bless them. Bless them with the crime ceremony. Those tears mean something. That individual had value, much value in our lives. Don't be afraid to say their names. Don't be afraid to talk about them. That's how we honor them today. And if you have the luxury, some have the luxury of raising these children, and some of them are now big and they've had grandchildren, the ones that have gone. Don't forget to feed the ones that have gone. They're still watching. They're still smiling. They're still praying for the ones that are walking here on earth. And as you continue to go ahead with your tasks today, be mindful. I usually ask people, your homework today is to say, I love you 4 times. And if you can do it more, do it. Your homework as well is to smile. Smile at somebody who's got their head down. Give them a reason to smile back, that you may be the only one that acknowledged their being that day. Be comfortable with your human. Routines, rules, boundaries, limits. That's how we model respect and teach people how to have respect for us as well. So as we continue to go on with our days and the days ahead, honor. Do it with honor. It's like I've lost my mother and my father over the last while, and I live my life in honor of them. I live my life in honor of my Coco that was murdered unjustly. I always think of what our family would have been like had she still been around for us to be loved by her. So take a moment of gratitude. Creator gave them to us for but just a little piece, a little reason. And don't forget, our journey here is small. Invest your time wisely and your energy wisely. So, Kitwam, I love you. Bye.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So with that, I'd like to pass it over to our moderator, Danielle, to have us have a really beautiful conversation. Thank you.
First, I'd just like to do a little bit of housekeeping to make sure that the order we're going to speak in is everyone is okay with that. Del, are you're available now? Yeah. Okay. So
I'll be available till 1 o'clock. Yes.
Till 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm wondering if we have with us this morning, we have Danielle from Manitoba, Sheila Poorman from Vancouver, and Brenda DuBois from Regina, Saskatchewan. and I am in Quinton, Saskatchewan, next to my homeland, Wakatu's First Nation. Excuse me. I am a grandmother of 22 grandchildren, a mother of 5. I had 4 children, and as we all do, I've took in one, and I have so I have 5 children, and I am Nahiwiao from Kwakatu's First Nation, and I have worked in the field of community and social development. You know, I hate to say it, for over 30 years. So there's always, you know, it's been good work, and there's always work to be done. For the last 10 years, since my family had decided that we would put forward our sister's name and add it to the list of the murdered and the missing. It's been a journey of healing, journey of, for our family, we never talked about what happened to Lainey. We just never spoke of it. And once we decided to do that, as my oldest sister had said, that we're going to do this, put her name forward and join, if it's going to help other people and help stop what's happening to our women, we will do this. And my one sister, Mona Woodward, had worked in the field of, you know, she actually was one, you know, it starts, every movement starts somewhere. It starts with a spark. In 1989, 1990, there were a series of women that, there was like 6, 7 women were disappearing, and they were friends of many of the women down in the downtown east side. And it was 4 of them that one day just put up signs and had, you know, have you seen her? You know, do you know where she is, with the name of the woman that they were, that was missing or that had been murdered. And it started from there. 2 years later, they had organized the first Valentine's Day March. And in 2 years ago, you know, like my sisters, from when we look at from 1989 to the 20-year mark of the march, that which they had the young girls, the teen girls lead it with drums. Her granddaughter was one of them. So it's been like going on to the 3rd generation of this work. And we know that until there is really justice for our people, that we will never stop. And it shows that in our families that we raise those kinds of activists, those kinds of people who will not stop for justice. So I'm just wondering, Del, do you have a PowerPoint? Michaela, do you think we would be able to set that up so that, Del, do you mind going first?
Sure, I can do that. I would just need to share my screen for the PowerPoint.
Yeah, so yeah. Okay, so we'll begin with Del's story of her daughter. Love to you all.
Okay, can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, so I guess I just wanted to give a bit of introductory to you about myself. My name is Dolores Daniels, and I work in human resources for an education organization, Manitoba First Nations Education Resource Center here in Winnipeg. And we have over 600 staff that we employ and who work in First Nations education. So I'm the director of human resources, and I've been there for 18 years. And I wanted to share a bit about myself as well as my experience with the loss of my daughter. And you know, just to give you a good overview of some of the challenges that I've had with the loss. So my daughter was Serena McKay. She was 19 years old in April of 2017 when she lost her life. So I'm going to go through the slides that I have. I'm originally from Peguis, Manitoba, in Manitoba, and also from George Gordon First Nations in Saskatchewan. So when I was a younger child, I grew up with my grandparents until I was about 6 years old. And so my grandparents were Hilliard and Doris McNabb out of George Gordon. And that's me in the purple there when I was staying with them at that time. My brother and I attended the residential school in George Gordon for about a year of our lives. And this is with our grandmother, Doris, and she truly loved all of her grandchildren. And, you know, they were really our matriarchs of the family. And, you know, they really supported and loved us until their passing. My grandfather was, you know, my greatest role model because he was a community leader, an elder. He was in as chief and council member for a number of years. And he always talked about education and about how important it was for his family as well to be educated in order to make changes to within our own family and, you know, within the systems. And so he always promoted and encouraged us to get an education and to be something that, you know, would make that change. So like I said, he was a very strong leader, and he also obtained the Order of Canada in later on in his life. These are my children. I have my son Joshua. There's Alexander on the middle left. My third youngest was Jonathan, and he's at the top there. And then my daughter, Serena, she would have been 20 at the time I took, or when I posted this original picture. Like I said, she was 19 when she passed away. And I apologize in advance if people feel that, I know that there's some people that feel that we shouldn't be sharing pictures of our loved ones that have passed, but this is my way of remembering her. So this is our group picture from 2014. Like Danielle said, I do live in Winnipeg, and I grew up here since I was about 7 years old. And so I've always taken my daughter with me on different trips that I've gone on. And the little girl in the middle there that I'm holding, that's my youngest granddaughter. She's going on to 9 years old now. And the ones on the right are my other two grandchildren who live in New Brunswick. So my oldest son has two of the girls on the right, and my middle son has the one on the left there. So there's and my oldest son also has another son, Caleb, and that's myself and him on the top right. And then Winter and Chastity are the ones on the left that live in New Brunswick. And then my granddaughter, Aubrey, who I call Obs, she's the one on the the lower bottom, sorry. So my daughter was brutally beaten in April 22nd of 2017. And there were two youth that were charged with her murder. They were 16 and 17 years old at the time. And through the Youth Criminal Justice Act, they were sentenced as youth. And they were also given plea bargains where it was quite of an experience trying to learn how the justice system worked, and especially with the youth. And so when I'm talking here during my presentation, I'm going to focus mostly on how we can impact or change the youth within the First Nations, as well as within anywhere in Canada. And just to give my perspective on how things can change within the system. So she was brutally beaten. There was a video that was circulated on social media all over the world about her beating, because the youth that were involved did a video while they were beating her. And so it was circulated throughout social media within Messenger, and they posted, I believe, 2 videos, and one main video was shared throughout. And there was 7 youth that were at a party during this time, and there was about 4 girls and 3 boys. And one of the boys was the one responsible for taking the video. And so when it came down to sentencing or charging the youth, the boys who were in the video or were present during the time were not charged at all. But the 2 girls were charged, and they were the only ones held accountable for my daughter's death. They did, during the court proceedings, they did receive victim impact statements from various people. And that included people who had seen the video and who had been aware of what had happened to her. But they threw out many of those victim impact statements because they didn't know my daughter directly. And they said that people who had direct contact with her or were family members or whoever knew her would be able to submit impact statements. So many of those that were submitted were dismissed. And so that was a bit of apprehension for me, because there were many, many people impacted around the world, with the video and with seeing what had happened to her. And so it was very controversial, and there was a lot of people impacted. There was a lady out of California who developed a page on Facebook, and she shared a lot of information that she had found out, and she had posted different things about my daughter, and just with things that she had found out about the accused. And so there were, hundreds of people that had joined onto this page and wanting to have justice for my daughter. And so it was very controversial. They did show the video during the court proceedings, during the sentencing, but I did not ever see the video. And, that was just one thing that I didn't want to ever see, was, to see how she was beaten. And that video was had even come up recently in Facebook, because there was one of the youth that was released in August of 2020, and they basically brought up that video again because people had found out that she was released, and they were quite upset about it. So they wanted to raise awareness that that this one youth had such a short time frame in custody, and they wanted to have awareness about it, and that it wasn't fair to them. And so the second accused is going to be released in October of 2021. And so with the sentencing, the first youth was sentenced to second-degree murder. She did receive a sentence of 7 years. However, it was just under 5 years that she was in custody. And then the remaining just under close to 2 years will be conditional supervision. So when she gets out in October 2021, it'll be conditional. The other youth that was charged with manslaughter or sentenced with manslaughter. And she was to get a sentence of a maximum of 3 years. So she did spend about a year and just under 2 years in custody. And then she will have another year of conditional supervision, which is what she's under now. So we did obtain a letter just informing that she has a no contact order with any of our family. And but she is released, and that was kind of what the uproar was about recently. I wanted to also talk about my cousin's daughter, Keisha Bitternose. She was also murdered in Regina, Saskatchewan in January of 2020. And there were 3 charged with her murder in Regina. So, you know, our family has been impacted by more than one of our family members having died due to violence. And so she was my cousin's only daughter. She is the mother of 4 children. And there were 2 males, 20 and 25 years old, and 1 female that was 26 years old, who were charged with her murder in January 2020. So she leaves behind 4 children, like I said, and she also had lost 1 baby at birth. So she never really got over that loss either. And so she was also suffering, I guess, with her own issues. And, you know, both of our daughters were had their own issues and were involved with high risk issues as well. But we, you know, we're both fought my cousin is currently fighting for justice for her daughter. And, you know, it's been a difficult process for all of us. I wanted to talk a bit about lateral violence because I do believe that a lot of the issues that our young people face are due to lateral violence. So just some stats that 95% of young people have witnessed lateral violence or bullying at home. 60% of professional staff have experienced lateral violence in the workplace. And 95% of the bullying that occurs among First Nations or Aboriginal people themselves. And the victims often feel depressed or alone. The term comes from a form of bullying that includes the gossip and the shaming and the blaming of others, backstabbing, and attempts to socially isolate other people. And so it's essentially directed sideways, meaning that the aggressors are your peers and often people in powerless positions or even just within young people themselves. And the victims do this organized behavior to each other because it's part of an oppressed group within the family, within the organization, or within the community. It is a worldwide occurrence with all minorities, especially with Indigenous people. And it comes from being told you are worthless or being treated as worthless for a long period of time. And so the roots lie in the colonization, oppression, and the intergenerational trauma, the powerlessness, and the ongoing experiences with racism and discrimination. And so this unjust or cruel exercise of power or authority from one group goes to another group or people within a community. So as you know, like the colonization within with the residential schools and things like that broke down the families. It dislocated our people from our land, our traditions. It imposed the assimilation onto the children through residential school. And, there was the suffering that happened within the residential schools with the physical and sexual abuse. And, some of those children became abusers themselves. And this impacted the future generations. So there was a lack of protection and support from the school administrators. Students were forced to fend for themselves. And at times their actions may have been deliberate because the perpetrator may have been unaware of their actions. So there was a result of high rates of violence, including family feuding and bullying and gossiping. And it was a learned behavior because it was passed down from generation to generation. And there's also the cyberbullying, such as through texting and social networking. And that's also been an emerging issue. And people use lateral violence because they have low self-esteem or low self-worth. They can't accept others. They're confused and unhappy with themselves. They're stuck in that cycle. And there's a lack of knowledge and awareness and unresolved anger, pain, and shame. So some prevention methods are to name it, to publicly talk about it, and within the community itself to just talk about that violent behavior and discuss what impacts it has and start developing solutions to resolve those issues. There needs to be strong support from leadership for healing initiatives, also valuing diversity among all involved, and stopping the family and the family violence through outreach and education. And also to celebrate successes of the community once we reach those milestones, and to have that empowerment within the community. And also, there are things that can be done, such as healing circles and sharing experiences, such as what we're doing now, dealing with conflict and setting up those zero tolerance policies, such as having a dry reserve. Because as you know, a lot of the issues that have evolved are from, and the violence that results is from alcohol or drug abuse. So within Canada, there is the Criminal Youth Justice Act, and it says that society has a responsibility to address the developmental challenges and needs of young persons, and that communities and families should work in partnership with others to prevent youth crime by addressing its underlying causes, responding to the needs of young persons, and providing guidance and support. And, even though that we felt as a family that these youth were not given the sentence that we felt they should have got, I do feel, badly for what they went through as well. And I feel badly for, whatever issues they had felt leading up to what had happened. But there does need to be an implementation of an action plan to address those issues. So things like education, providing support to the youth, helping them to overcome those systemic challenges and issues, and then also helping them to transition when they, say if they're living on the reserve and if they're moving to the city, then, how do we help them to transition and to be a part of society in general? there needs to be an understanding of the justice system, because as families, we don't necessarily understand, the whole process of how things work. So, for instance, when I was going through court, and they talked about the support that families would need with understanding the justice system. Even myself, I was not aware of how things worked. And so I think, within the youth justice system, they talk about the diminished moral blameworthiness or culpability, and that youth, this relates to youth specifically. And, when they're trying to decide whether a youth is old enough or mentally capable of understanding what they have done, then they look at all of those factors, and it's a consideration in their sentence as well. So, and then like with plea bargaining, like how does that work? And I think there needed to be more of an education for families on understanding what that all meant. And also accountability with all involved in the crime, because like I said, the other youth were not charged with being involved with that murder, and they were listed as bystanders, and that they had no direct physical involvement with my daughter, so they were not held accountable. Also, I feel that there needs to be a legislation when posting violent videos, because of the controversial impact and the impact on hundreds of people that had seen that video. And, somehow there needs to be a way to get rid of those videos if they are online, because they say that everything that you post stays online forever, which is why people were reposting that video. And then, like I said, with determination of youth versus an adult, at what level of capacity should be considered with respect to a sentence. And these girls were able to have those GLADU factors with their sentencing, so they were able to talk about what their history was and what their issues were as youth. And but then there was no consideration for my daughter's GLADU factors. And other than what we had written in our impact statements, that was, there was no question as to what we wanted considered as GLADU factors for our loved one. So when it comes to sentencing Indigenous or First Nations youth, should those GLADU factors also be considered for those victims? So that's another challenge that I had during the process. So I wanted to talk a bit about respect, because when my daughter passed, there was an elder that came to see me, and she did give my daughter an Indian name, and it was Buffalo Woman. And so when we look at the 7 teachings, one of them is about respect, and the buffalo represents respect. So when I think about respect, I know that it is learned and it is also earned. It's a kinder way to relate to one another. It requires us to step up and do our part. So essentially it starts with me. thinking before we act or speak, or even when we type something to someone, considering how we want our message to be given. And it's also considering how our actions affect other people. And thinking about how they would want and deserve to be treated. So I always think that the way you treat others is the way that you would want to be treated as well. And it's also about raising the bar for the way that we treat one another. So this is really important to me because when I interact with people, especially through work, I always try to relay that respect. So this was my daughter when she was a baby. She was a beautiful little baby girl, and she was really loved by all of her family. When she was growing up, she was part of Girl Guides, and so she really learned a lot about taking care of herself, and she had done some camping trips on her own, and you know, she really loved to be involved with that, and it kind of relayed into her later life, because when she was younger, you know, we went through her dad and I went through divorce when she was a teenager. And so because her dad was working up in the north in Manitoba, she was kind of a bit on her own because she was living with him at the time. And she was struggling with going to school, and, you know, with like he had his sister staying there for a while, kind of looking after them. And so she was struggling with just with fitting in, and she did have a lot of friends though throughout the years as her teenage life grew. And you know, so she did have a lot of friends, and they were closely connected. She did have two friends that she really loved. One of them had committed suicide in 2015, and then another one had died in a car accident later on that year. So she had her own loss as well. So she struggled a lot with that. And I did get her through some programs just to help her deal with her own issues. And you'll see the bottom right, she has a drum that she made. So she was really actively involved in trying to better her life and to do better things for herself. So in 2016, she decided that she would go live with some of our friends from previous times, and they lived in Saugeen, Manitoba, in Fort Alexander. So she went to live with them to do her grade 12, to finish her grade 12, and she was 18 at the time, and so she did attend the high school, and the people that she was living with, the father was a teacher. So he would take her to school every day and make sure that she was keeping up with her studies. And, you know, that's the reason why she was out in Saugeen when she passed away. She never went anywhere because basically because she didn't really know anybody and she didn't have friends. And so the night that she went out was one of the first times that she really, I guess, interacted with some peers from school. She was to graduate June 23rd. So these are pictures of the graduation at that time. I was invited to attend, which I did, and it was difficult to get out there. And there have been, I did get a lot of support from all over the place. There was a young girl that from Peguis who did have a special for her in July. And so we attended that. And it was a really powerful event. We still celebrate her birthday, which is September 30th. And so this was in 2017, and these are some of her close friends and family. And it was a really difficult time for them too, because they were pretty close to her. I've attended like different events, and I've done some speaking events on different places. So the one on the left is when I went to Ojichak. It's Crane River in Manitoba. I did a speaking event there in September of 2017, and just to the youth and to the community on my story and with my daughter. The one on the right is my mom and myself at the MMIWG Day at the Manitoba Legislative Building, October of 2017. I did attend a Spirit of Our Sisters conference in November of 2017, just to talk about my story as well and do a presentation. I've done walks and different events. So this was the Women's March in January of 2018, when family and friends attended with myself to do a speech. And then there was also a walk in February of 2018, and I've attended different events on healing. This is Wiping Away the Tears event of February 26, 2018. We did our own red dress art. So, and these events are really helpful for us as families, because we're able to, just share and to hear other families' experiences. So I'm really grateful for the organizations that do hold these events for our family members. There was the Elders Gathering in September of 2019, where they did an awareness for MMIWG. And then I do attend MKO events, which is the Northern MKO office in Thompson, Manitoba. So we do attend those events as well. I attended the Saskatchewan MMIWG gathering in November of 2019, and this is actually Danielle's daughter with me. She makes the red skirts there, and I really appreciate her work as well, in raising awareness and just making these skirts for family members. And so the other one is just a Valentine's Day of 2020, the March. There is the Calls for Action awareness that happened in June of 2020. And, there was the national inquiry. I did attend that and shared my story and my issues. And we recently had a memorial event for our families three families got together because we do share a close date when our loved ones passed. So three families got together and had a ceremony on April 24th of this year, just to honor and remember our loved ones and to have a pipe ceremony and just to be together. There are different stages of grief, you know, that they say that when you lose somebody that people go through, and you know, my experience is kind of on the right, and you know, it's just all over the place, and it seems like it doesn't end, but it does get easier over time, you know. So it's, I guess, like a really difficult journey. And I've gotten, you know, several gifts over the years. The lady that had the page from California, she sent me that ring that's on the left, that purple ring. One of my friend's daughters had drew the picture in the middle. You know, and even as of this past weekend, my niece and nephew, or my nephew and his girlfriend, gave me those earrings on the right. You know, so one of the things my daughter had said was that she knew that she was going to pass away early or young in her life. And, you know, she was right. But one of the things she also said was, you guys are just going to forget about me. But I always told her that we would never forget. So the picture on the right here on this slide is just of her out in Clear Lake in the Paw, OCN in Saskatchewan, in northern Manitoba. And she's standing in the water there. So that kind of brings it to an end of the slides. You know, and thank you for listening. And, you know, I hope that it was useful for everybody. And I just appreciate having the opportunity to have a talk and to just share my story. Miigwech.
Hi. Thank you, Del. And our hearts and our love are there with you, and with the families. And I think the information you gave is really important. And it really looks, and it looks at the dynamics that we all face in our communities, and how dangerous that can be, and how important it is that as matriarchs and as women that we, you know, teach children, and even children that have been lost and are in the system, that we teach them that they're loved and find a way to get their hearts open. I think that's so important. Thank you very much for that. And you know that we're with you. And I think families that are watching this also know and feel the same as you do. Love you. Thank you. We will have next up is Sheila, and Sheila's going to share the story of her loved one. My internet connection, I live in the boonies, so my internet connection, I couldn't believe it went out, but I was able to get back on. So I'm going to mute and stop my video because it makes the connection better. And we'll begin with next with Sheila.
Hi. So my name is Sheila Poorman. I'm the mother of Chelsea Poorman, who went missing September 7th, 2020. She went missing from Vancouver in the downtown area. It's been going on 9 months now since we've heard from her. It's hard. It's very difficult. It's something that no parent should go through, or anyone should go through. You know, just knowing that your loved one can just disappear with no trace, you know, with nothing. I just want to talk about my daughter and the kind of person that she is. And then after I get into her story, I will talk about how our investigation has went and is going so far here in Vancouver. So Chelsea, she's 25. She was 24 when she disappeared. Her birthday was October 12th. So she just turned 25. And so it was unusual for her not to contact us on her birthday. Chelsea's very, she's very kind. She's very friendly and caring. She is always willing to help others, even when she may not, have what they're asking. She'll give her what she does have. And with her friendliness and her kindness, I think that's where many take advantage of my daughter. They take advantage of her and, use her for whatever they can. And that's the sad part about it is, Chelsea's willing to help them, but they don't see that. They just see what can we get from her. She went through a lot in her life where many wouldn't even be able to live through it. She did. She persevered. And she got through so many things that many people would not be able to get through. Chelsea is very strong-willed, and I think that's one of the biggest things that she had on her side to get her through the things that she's been through. And I've always reminded her, and I've always told her that, the Creator has big plans for you, Chelsea. That's why, you've been through so much, and that's why He's keeping you alive, and, He's looking out for you. Chelsea came to Vancouver here to better her life. So that was one of the main things that she came up here for, was to get help for her mental health and for her addictions. She wanted to go to school. She wanted to sober up, and she wanted to, live life. She had many dreams. Like once she graduated from from high school, she wanted to continue her education. She had a love for music. She wanted to become a musician. She wrote songs and lyrics, which, some of her lyrics was just her telling her side of how she feels and, kind of who she is as a person. She wrote a few poems about, her life and what she's going through. She also loved makeup, sorry. So she had plans on making makeup tutorials on YouTube. She was wanting to do that. And she's very funny, like she has a sense of humor. So I encouraged her to, do that, make videos. Like she loved making people laugh. She's a huge animal lover. So she was always taking in stray cats. The other thing too, she has a very unique sense of fashion. She wanted to become a fashion designer. And she had this sense of fashion since she was young. I'd say about 4 or 5. Some days we wouldn't be able to leave the house with her until her outfit matched. And that's where her strong will came in. So we had to wait for her to change and get the right outfit before we could leave. When she was a young teenager, she wanted to start designing and making her own clothes. So this one day I got home and after work, and she was home from school, and she showed me her outfit, and I was just like, wow, like it's beautiful, Chelsea. Then I looked a little bit closer and I realized, hey, those are my pillowcases. Yeah, she decided to make a skirt out of my pillowcases. So it was too funny for me to be mad at her at that time. Yeah, so Chelsea has a big heart, like a huge, huge heart. When we'd drive around in Saskatoon, when we lived there, we'd always drive around and she'd notice people and she'd say, Mom, let's go and see him and see if he's okay. And so we'd go and she'd offer him, her coffee that she had. And it was one of the things that she loved to do, was to always help another person. Some of the things that Chelsea's been through when she was younger were some things that nobody should go through. For myself, I struggled with addictions, and I too have mental health issues. When I was younger, I actually lived the life that Chelsea lived. I struggled with addictions. I was abused in foster homes. I was suicidal. I started working the streets at a young age. I was physically abused by men multiple times. I was human trafficked. And it took me a while to sober up, but once I did, I made my daughters my focus. So when Chelsea was 13, she was starting to live a life. It was high risk. And she ended up, running away and ending up in other cities. One time she was missing for about 3 weeks, and I put a missing persons report in, and I found out that she was in Edmonton, and she was human trafficked by an individual who held her up in the hotel there for 3 weeks. He held her up and moved her around and would sell her from the room. She did call me. She made it a point to phone me at that time, and I asked her, I said, well, where are you? I'll come and get you. And she goes, no, Mom, I owe this guy money. And I was angry, and I said, well, I don't give a, flying hoot who he is. I'll come and get you. Just tell me where you are. And the phone call was cut short, and I didn't hear from her again. So I'd phoned the police in Edmonton, and they said, there's nothing that we could do, because I didn't know where she was. I just knew that she was in Edmonton, and I didn't have a location. So they said they couldn't do anything. Saskatoon police said they also couldn't do anything because, again, I didn't know where she was. I just knew that she was in Edmonton. So the only thing that I was able to do on my end was pray and believe for her safety and for her return. So one day, she ended up early in the morning, she ended up at my door. She was tired, exhausted. And she said, Mom, she said, you're gonna have to phone the police. I said, I'll do that. I said, but right now I need you to get some sleep. I said, once you wake up, I said, well, phone the police. So we did end up phoning the police, and she told her story to the police. She gave her statement, and after she was done, she said, Mom, she said, I feel as if they didn't believe me. I feel as if, she goes, I was the one who did something wrong. And I told her, I said, that's just part of their job. I said, I'm so sorry you had to go through that. So that was one of the things that, and how she ended up there was she was lured. She was lured by another female to go up there, and they're gonna, do shopping and party and whatnot. There was another time when she ran away. She was missing for a bit there, and she'd phone me up, and she was in Winnipeg this time. This is after Edmonton. She ended up in Winnipeg, and I told her, I said, well, I was in Saskatoon. It was winter time, and I said, okay. I said, I'm coming for you. I said, keep in contact with me. I said, I jumped in my vehicle that time, and I drove from Saskatoon, and I went to Regina, picked up my niece, ended up in Winnipeg. My daughter said that she was being held up in a meth house or a crack house. They wouldn't let her go. So she had to come up with this story that she's going to do an overnight, I guess, whatever date with this man. And so she packed a bag, and she said that he was going to pick her up. And meanwhile, it was me. I picked her up that time, and she was scared. And she was telling me that they had her working in the Winnipeg. They had her working, and she was only wearing a mini skirt. It was like -40 below out, and they had her working the streets. When I got her back, she was going through withdrawals because they are feeding her drugs to keep her working. I'd do anything for Chelsea at that time, driving to Winnipeg to go and get her, brought her back, and it just seemed like the cycle just kept going. I didn't know how to help her. She ended up in a car accident where this individual who groomed my daughter since she was 14, he would give her drugs, he would give her alcohol, he would buy her clothes, in change for sex with my daughter. And this individual was like an older individual. He was like in his 40s, and my daughter was like 14, 15. And so he got her drunk one night, and he lived outskirts of Saskatoon. He got her so drunk and kicked her out of his house. She ended up walking on the highway, and as she was walking, she got hit by a semi. She survived that, but the doctor just couldn't believe that she survived being hit by a semi. She had some multiple injuries to her legs. She has rods in her legs and in her arm. Like taking on a semi, and she's only like 5 feet, 120 pounds, and surviving. It just goes to show that she has a strong will to live. And that's one thing I know, that Chelsea, wherever she is, she's doing everything she can to survive. I know that. And I love that part of her. And I know that's going to get her through wherever she is. She had a brain injury from that accident. So her memory she lost some memory to it. So the individual that held her up in Edmonton, the court court date came up, and she went to Edmonton. Since she couldn't remember certain things of what had happened to her with this individual that human trafficked her, the court was dismissed. Chelsea was devastated. She couldn't believe that, she was let down, and this man was able to walk away free after, tormenting her and selling her and beating her. It just broke her spirit. Wherever she is, I pray that she knows that we love her and we miss her dearly. The one thing about Chelsea was her brain injury. It makes her very vulnerable. So when she ended up here in Vancouver, which was in July, she was seeking help for her mental health at a clinic. She was doing what she could to get the help that she needed. But her trauma and everything else is just too much for her. She, like I said, she's strong-willed. So she persevered through whatever was in front of her. And she'd always keep on trying to better herself, try to get that help. She never gave up. So she ended up meeting an individual, and she moved in with him. Here in Vancouver, they lived up in Burnaby. And she kept in contact with me. So September 6th, she decided she wanted to come and visit, which was fine. And she came over. She was visiting with her sister most of the day. And then they decided to go out for something to eat. I was going to go with them, but I figured that they would, enjoy their time together, sister time. And I didn't want to interfere with that. So off they went. And I sent them texts throughout the evening, asking them how their evening was going, how they're doing, where they were. And then Paige ended up sending me a text saying that she couldn't find Chelsea. So I tried phoning Chelsea and messaging her, and there was no response. I tried to locate her location on Snapchat or Facebook Messenger, but nothing. Paige ended up coming home later on. And we tried to contact Chelsea throughout the night and throughout the morning and the next day. So September 7th, we had no word from her. So the next day we decided to make the missing persons report. The police are supposed to come by and take the initial report from us, but it took them a while to get to us. And I don't know, it just seemed like they were just taking their time to do whatever they could for Chelsea. And I told them that my daughter's very vulnerable. You know, she's a high risk and she's vulnerable. But they didn't do anything with that information. They just kind of discarded it and thought it wasn't important. They didn't put anything out in the media for, I don't know, a week. I was just like, why? And they said, oh, for her safety. That if we put it out there right away, the information that she's missing, that it might put her in danger. And I didn't understand how that was. How could you do that? They lost a lot of valuable time with their investigation because they didn't go down to Granville and they didn't check out the videos. And that was frustrating. My family and I put out posters. We went out there and tried to talk to people. You know, we did our own search. And then a couple of months went by and finally the homicide unit took over my daughter's case, and they said it's not because we think that she's it's a homicide case, it's because they have more resources and that my daughter's high risk. And I'm like, I told you guys this from the beginning. I said that she's vulnerable and she's high risk. So nothing really became of my daughter's investigation at all. Like, there's no new leads, no new tips, no new information. They did a search with the dogs and the diving team in that area of Granville where my daughter was last seen, and they came up with nothing. The tips that we did get ended up, not being her. This is hard for any parent, like I said, to go through. Some of the organizations that helped me with the Vancouver Aboriginal Police Services, they helped. Butterflies in Spirit, they helped out a lot, and we did a walk for Chelsea up Granville, which was a huge turnout. It was a beautiful, beautiful walk for my daughter, to honor her and to, let her know that we haven't forgotten. We're going to keep your name out here and your face up. I want to thank the people so far that have helped my family in her search with the prayers. I thank you for that. I want to thank you for listening to my daughter's story. Like, her story is a story of perseverance, a story of strength, a story of courage, because that's who my daughter is. She's a survivor. And we need her a home more than anything. All right. I just want to thank everybody for listening. Thank you, Danielle. Oh, I'm done. Danielle? Hello?
Okay, I think I am on, I think I muted myself.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, but thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sheila. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Oh, something happened there. Our hearts are with you, you know, and just pray for daily. I know my oldest sister, who's 80 and is a prayer warrior. She's included you in her daily prayers in the morning and in the night. You know, and your daughter is a survivor, you know, and hopefully you'll be able to find her. I know this past winter, my niece went missing, and I flew over to Vancouver, and I had hoped to try to connect with you when we were searching. We were searching some pretty rough places. I brought my son, who is a former U.S. Army Ranger, because I knew we were going to go into some tough places. And I had to promise my older son that I wouldn't go in there, that I'd let David, but we know, and I just pray and thank you. It would appear that it's the grassroots people that provide the support, and not the organizations. And you would think that after the national inquiry, you know, it's been 2 years, that there would be supports that are systematic, that a family would be able to go to, especially with the Vancouver City Police, who have rewritten their policies, that they would be able to respond much better than that. It's really discouraging.
Yeah, it was very discouraging when
Yeah.
they weren't taking it serious enough. And then seeing, you know, the media of another missing person, you know, it was up there and police were just like, you know, all over that. And then I was just like, what? Like, what makes a difference from my daughter to this other woman? You know, what makes this missing person more important than my daughter? So it was discouraging to see how the media kind of responded, and especially the police too. And I know that they're doing their job, and I'm not going to blame them for, you know, anything, but, you know, just do a better job. You know, that's all I ask, is for people to do a better job, and don't, you know, look at any missing person as different because of their skin color. You know, a missing person is a missing person. And they're missed and they're loved, and, you know, yeah, so that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
And
thank you.
Dell has another commitment, so she'll be leaving right now. And I know
Oh,
you
yeah,
have another
yes, I do.
have
So I'll be leaving right away
commitment
here.
as well.
Yeah.
May 5th is the busy day for
Yes,
all
it
the
is.
families. And
Okay.
and you know, Sheila, we love and we support you, and we're going to the TATC back home. We're going to look at ways that we can help and support you even more. Love to you, and love to your family. And thank you, Dell.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing. And
Right.
both of you are both just courageous women. And we know that the sacrifice it takes to share that out there, so that it gives strength to other families. And in your times of grief, that, you know, that just shows that, you know, the moral courage that's innate in our women. You both exemplify that. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Have a
So
good
we're
day.
going to have Brenda speak now, and she can share her family story. I know it's a historical one, and we have 20 minutes. So if you just want to share some of that, and we, you know, love to you, Brenda. I'll mute.
Thank you very much. I want to give my regards to the ladies that spoke before me. You spoke on behalf of a lot of mothers, a lot of fathers, a lot of brothers, a lot of sisters that have lost people in our community, not to dismiss your own walk that you continue to do. And I'm just going to take a moment to talk a little bit about my piece, my connection to this. My Kokum was murdered in the city in the early 70s. We were well protected from everything in regards to what had happened to our Koko. My uncle did a great job. The hard part was when it came time to actually start dealing with the reality that our Kokum was murdered, was getting the information. And to some degree, for us, it was the first time we were actually reading the article that was put in the paper the day after she died. And how the newspaper wrote it at that time was basically a woman found slain, which slain is a very passive word, which means at that point in time, it was somewhat acceptable behavior for individuals to go around our city and beat up as many Indigenous people as possible. That evening, they just happened to pick my Koko. I always wonder what our life would have been like had she lived, because she was a very strong matriarch for our family. And when I allude to the word matriarch, I allude to it as women who have power, power to make decisions and power to do. And that was the kind of person that she was. Her and my mother made a great team as caregivers for children in our community, especially within our family network. So I want to thank our Koko for being a part of that great energy of a matriarch that I continue to honor for her here today. When it came time to get ready for some of the stuff that was going on around missing murdered, I also then started having conversations with my aunt and my uncle. And that's where I had found that they were protected. My uncle protected them well. And what I realized at that point in time was that I was going to be the one that was introducing to them some of the facts that led to their mother's death. Therefore, they were entering the first stages of shock, of grief, of a loss, again, all over again. And that was quite difficult. I'm not going to talk about some of the things in regards to philo. You know, everything can always get better in regards to supports for families along the way. The only thing I wish is that if they say they're going to do something, that they actually do something for the families, with the families. If they say they're going to check on the families, check on the families. And there's a piece too. Some of the families may be angry. Don't take it personally as a helper. Understand that's a part of the walk with some of the families. They're very hurt. And if all you're seeing is anger, then maybe somebody else needs to be a part of that journey in helping families. I need to as well take a moment, not only for my Koko, but 2 months ago, our family was hit again. And my cousin was brutally murdered, actually just 2 blocks from where I live. No answer for it, no answer for it. We know in our heart of hearts that we're going to deal with this different than we are even allowed potentially to deal with it and cope with it. Through our Kokum's loss, this gentleman still has yet to go to court and trial for the taking of my cousin's life. I pray for him because he's the one that's got to live with this. And I pray for his family, but I pray for my cousin's family too, because now they have to deal with the loss. And they too have to get ready for this next wave. Even though there's an end, there is no end when someone dies, especially in these manners. It is the beginning of something else that leads to the end, that leads to the beginning of something else. There's no such thing as closure. I agree with the lady that spoke earlier, Dell, in regards to the stages of grief. There's times where you can get so consumed with hurt and anger. And I tell people to feel it, process it, and release it in a good way. And if you need to, call for help, because we need to get back to focus on what is in front of us, especially if we are raising children or really just trying to tend to our own human in the midst of grief. And some of you still can't even go into grief because you still have unanswered questions. I pray that you get answers to those questions. Your daughters, your children, your sisters, your loved ones have value. great value in our lives. And I want to thank you as well for doing what we call the crying ceremony. Letting those tears fall, because those individuals that passed are still missing, they have meaning in our life. And that's what the tears remind us of. And it's okay to do that. You don't have to say we're sorry. We say we're sorry and we're negating why we cried, and we cried for a good reason. Good reason. We're still walking with that grief. We're still talking about that grief. But the harsh reality is we're trying to make a difference for the futures, for the ones in front of us. And Del alluded to that as well. How can we get better with the ones ahead? Well, one, we need to hold the state accountable first. For one, there's been a great call in regards to the MMIW and all the actions that need to take place from there as well. But there's also a great call from Truth and Reconciliation, the 90 calls to action, 90 plus calls to action from there as well. I can talk further about all the other documents that are put together, but I think what we are saying now is time. Time is now. We can't wait anymore for idle promises. We need to see change within our system. And it's Sheila, I believe. Sheila, thank you for talking about the police, because that is a place where everything starts. And yes, to prepare families to write their statements first before they actually go into the police station is what I have done with some families, because the process that the police take them through to some degree is very insensitive. So when I do some of these ones, I assist families with smudge, prayer, as they continue to write and get out the truth of what they need to in regards to that individual that they're declared missing. There are other friends, women that I associated with, two-spirited individuals that were taken in this way as well. And I want to just take a moment to honor them. You could say names. I'll try my best. There's a whole list of names we say all the time. The Kuwaitan girls, they were murdered almost a month apart, maybe 2 months apart. Wisequate, young girl, her name is Janelle. Yeah. Francis Marasti, found on the lake. There's still no answers there. Not even a formal investigation, not even a cold case to some degree. Just gone. And I think the other piece I want to put in the air too is ask God created to continue to watch over all our peoples, not just all our people, all people, but especially those ones that feel that nothing will happen to them. Please, Creator God, watch over them, because we still have a list of young ones that are missing today. And the harsh reality is we want this to stop. When is it going to stop? And we should have the freedom to leave our homes and have some sense of safety. But the harsh reality is, if you are leaving your homes today, you have to leave with a safety plan. Our children need to understand why. We need to know where they are, who they're hanging with, what they're doing, and a safety plan for them to get home, whether it's just taking a cab to get out of where they are at, but giving them a safety plan, talking about the potential that they can get out of the situation that they got themselves into. So I really want us to continue to pray and acknowledge that we want this to stop. We want this to be different. We shouldn't have to be calling the police and lodging file missing reports about our children and our older ones. We need to let them know and wake up to the reality that this is a very serious, not an issue. It's not a problem. It's a daily event that potentially can happen to any individual at any point in time. So we ask people to put together safety plans. Let people know where you are. You don't realize how frantic your mother gets when you said you're going to be home 2 hours earlier and you're not home yet and you're not answering her call. Please answer those calls if you can. So that's about, for me, I know I could talk lots, but this is when you take time to sort of sit back and sort of go, I'm going to take a moment to allow myself to go through this, but I'm not going to get stuck here because you can get stuck in a very sad place. Please continue to feed the life in front of you, feed the beauty in front of you, feed the love in front of you. It's the only thing that's going to get us by. And if you do have the candle, because I do, and we need to light it for them once in a while or on a daily basis, we do that. We do that as well. If we need to go feed them, we go feed them as well. Include them in your daily activities. There's no such thing as goodbye. Kitwam. I'll give it back to Danielle.
Thank you, Brenda. Thank you very much. I didn't know about the second family member. I'm really sorry to hear that. Really sorry.
It's like the other sister said. You think you're done. You think you're done. You pray your family not going to get hit again. And that's a harsh reality. You just never know. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't high risk. He wasn't nothing. He was just a man just living his life. Mm-hmm. And somebody that was lost was the one that took him.
And I think that's a reality for many families, is that they just don't have one, they have two. I know that it was mentioned in my family about my grandmother, you know, back in the early 70s, and only was mentioned once when we were going through the names on the reserve for Kwakatus, how many were murdered or missing, and there are now 16. But nothing, you know, no one's ever talked about what happened with Coca Marie. You know, my sister, you know, is well, her case is well known and well, you know, there's lots of awareness. And you know, and about the safety plan, you know, like I'm raising granddaughters, and I never, you know, and one is 16, is looking forward to getting her car soon, and just you know, and that's never a discussion I've had with her. You know, and I know what the stats are out there, that 85% of our women have more chance of going murdered, of being murdered, going missing, being a victim of sexual assault, rape, or violence than they do of graduating university and getting married and having children. That's a really scary stat. And you know, and I even think back on my own life. Just, you know, like the times that I've been in danger, but I was, you know, got through it. But I mean, it never occurred to me, you know, and I'm so glad that our people have come to a level of awareness and are taking on that system. And I think when Del was speaking, and same with Sheila, about how that oppression and that colonization of our own community is so deep that the violence and how we're all raised with the idea of how women are treated, and those casual jokes that sexualized humor, you know, you know, how degrading and demeaning that is, and how that gets in you know, people's mindset, and that it's okay, and they don't realize that, you know, what it would lead to. And I think the education process is really important, and especially like when I really appreciated Dell's about the lateral violence, because that's something that's not really discussed in our communities at all, and that even when you're trying to speak of it, people make sure that, you know, that's shut down right away. So I think there's lots of really good information. We have a few minutes left, and we would also like you to say, if you know, if you will, closing prayer for this session. And we'd like to thank Sovereign Body Institute for this opportunity, and also for connecting us to our American sisters, our sisters in Latin and South America, and the South Pacific. And I also have been reading about what the Indigenous women of Australia, they're experiencing the same as us. and that their colonization process was almost the same as us. And I'm hoping that eventually that we'll be able to gather and be able to raise our voices and really amplify that to the world, and that our women reclaim their power, and that is embedded in their culture and to their land. So thank you so much, Brenda. You've brought so much to this, and if you wanted to say a closing prayer, that would be wonderful. Thank you. And special prayers to Del and Sheila for their courage, for being able to share. We love them.
Again, I want to thank grandfathers,
Go ahead.
grandmothers. I want to thank the grandfathers and grandmothers for looking kindly on us today. We're trying our best to be good humans. I want to say hi, like Danielle said, to our international sisters, brothers throughout the world. I remember we hosted the Mexican women here too, and we were really connected to the reality that same things happening down there as well. So we pray today. We give gratitude. We give gratitude for life. But we continue to pray for the hardships that our community continues to go through. We ask the Creator to bring the light of answers, the light of solutions, the light of the weight being lifted off our community, so that our value as women is really recognized and honored. We are not just women, we are matriarchs. We are strong matriarchs. We wouldn't be here without the legacy of the first girl that was sold to the colonizers. We are here yet. We are here as strong matriarchs as a result of all those colonialistic acts. And we continue to fight. We continue to fight. And we fight by making sure our home fires are tended to well. That's where we fight. And we say good words in our home to feed the spirits of the young ones and the older ones that are listening, because we are now asking ourselves to be spirit builders and not to be spirit takers. Once your home fires are well, then we can extend to the community. And I see a lot of families involved with MMIW extending their arms, their bodies, their legs, their voices to continued actions throughout the world around Indigenous women and men and two-spirited that are going missing or murdered. Continue to give them the energy, that fire that they require to live that good life, and continue to stand strong to honor the ones that they continue to walk for and speak about, so that their daughters, their sons, their two-spirited, their life meant something, and it still will today because of all what we're doing. There's nothing that I can do to take away the pain of what you continue to go through. The only thing I can do is pray for you, light my smudge, and continue to tell you, I don't know how you feel. I don't. But I pray that whatever you feel, that you feel it in a good way. You release it in a good way, so that you in their turn embrace the loss, but continue to cherish the life we have in front of us. There's no such thing as goodbye. There's really no such thing as a closing prayer. It is just but the end of this piece that we continue to go on to the new beginnings of our day. Hi, everybody. Jemagwich.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for closing us out in a good way. And thank you to everybody who's watching. This has been part of our Families First, honoring the voices and experiences of MMIWG2 Families panel during May 5th, the National Day of Awareness. We have several panels coming up today, so please tune in to all of them. And just thank you so much for all of these beautiful words that are shared today. We really appreciate you all. Bye.